What's going on, people? This is Shok. Now, for those of you who don't have me added on Facebook, which is most of you, I do this thing where after a new movie comes out, especially the superhero movies, but pretty much any movie I go see, what I like to do is I like to write up a little review on Facebook. But for Avengers Endgame, I just felt like that would not have been enough. You know what I mean? Like the movie is it's too grand, it's too holy to just keep it to a Facebook post. It's just not doing it justice. You know what I mean? But here is my completely unbiased, honest thoughts on this movie. Uh, it was a wild ride, man. It was a wild ride. Now I'm gonna get straight to the point. Um, I don't think this movie was just like the end all be all, Taj Mahal, Hail Mary of movies. And to be quite honest with you guys, I enjoyed Infinity War a little bit more. And I want to make sure you guys don't get disappointed for me saying that because I really, really loved Infinity War. I was giving that movie, I was saying like 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10. Not only is it like the best superhero movie, but it's one of the best movies of all time type deal, right? Like that's how hyped I was about Infinity War. So me saying I liked Infinity War more, that's not a slight to this movie. You know what I mean? So don't get me wrong. Of course, the movie is great. There's not going to be a bad, Avengers movie. I mean, people say Age of Ultron is bad. That was a bad Avengers movie, not a bad movie. You know what I mean? People consider that a bad Avengers, but not a bad movie in its own right. You know what I mean? But yeah, man. Basically, this movie it wraps at least this whole arc up. The first three phases or whatever. It revisits so much, right? And that's the main thing about this movie. I can tell you guys is that it's so focused on the legacy. You know what I mean? So many characters, deal with things from their past. Character arcs are wrapped up and stuff. It's just about the MCU legacy. There's so many callbacks to the previous movies. Like, there's pretty much bits and pieces from like almost every single, Marvel movie out there. So it's really just, it, God, and a lot of people like, hey, can I enjoy Endgame if I haven't seen all the movies? Before Endgame came out, I was telling people like, you'd probably be able to enjoy it, but just not to the full extent. After seeing this movie, honestly, guys, wait. I know it may be risky because you're going to run the risk of spoilers if you wait any longer, but try to see at least most of the movies before you go see this movie because there's so much. Like I said, there's so much about the legacy. There's so many callbacks. There's a lot of things you won't get. There's a lot of things that are like highly emotionally impactful that you may not get because you didn't watch this movie or you didn't watch that movie. I'm being for real about this. I never thought I'd say this, but this movie made Thor: The Dark World relevant, and actually, made it an important part of an important piece of Thor. You know what I mean? Age of Ultron, which is another movie a lot of Marvel fans aren't too crazy about, at least the diehard ones. The masses loving the more casuals, but a lot of the diehard comic book fans didn't like Age of Ultron. But if you don't watch Age of Ultron, holy crap! Like there's this part like near the end during the final battle. It's like you gotta watch Age of Ultron to understand how hype it is. But for those of us who read comics or at least pay attention to them, we already know what's up. You guys know what I'm talking about. Oh man, okay, but let me actually, because I haven't really started critiquing the movie or whatnot. Obviously I enjoyed the movie. It was a great movie. That goes without saying. There's no way this movie's going to be freaking bad or even mediocre. That being said, I do have a few complaints regarding the movie. It was kind of slow. The pacing was kind of slow, and I want to be careful with this because I don't want you guys to get the wrong idea. But the movie was kind of similar to Batman vs Superman. Now hold up. I'm not saying in terms of quality. I'm only specifically saying that in terms of the pacing. It's almost like, half or maybe even a little over half of the movie is just kind of like lots of talking and build up and comedy and jokes. Of course, it's a Marvel movie, and I'll get to that in a second. But there's a lot of talking and build up and, this and that. And then at the end, there's this, just big explosion of just comic book goodness. Like, oh my god, oh my god, like once the third act starts, like once the whole final battle starts and everything, you're just gonna come. You're just gonna come. Like it's everything you always wanted, and they give it to you at the end, man. They give it to you at the end. But I want to say there was I want to say like I was ever bored with the movie. Like it's at least engaging the whole time, and mostly everything that is happening matters. You know what I mean? It's not just fluff and filler, anything like that. So everything's important, all the interactions and whatnot. But the movie does take its time to actually get to the good stuff. You know what I mean? The really good stuff. Now, I don't want to say that's like a bad thing because, this is the final movie. I guess it's just not what I was expecting. I swear Infinity War was like action, 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 right? Like it was just constant action. It didn't take long to start off at all. You got action within the first like 20 minutes of the movie, and then once it starts, it never stops, right? Endgame is kind of the opposite, where it starts and it's slow. You feel, the real back, the consequences from the previous movie. The characters are, they're mourning. You feel the emotional tone and the impact, and then they create the plan, and they're executing the plan, which doesn't really have any action in it when they're doing the plan and all that stuff either, really. But like I said, all of it does matter, So I wouldn't say like I was bored, but definitely if you're a more casual moviegoer or a casual comic book fan for the MCU or whatever, might be slightly disappointing that the action doesn't really pick up until there's maybe like 45, 30 minutes left of the movie. And that says a lot considering it is I wouldn't say 30, probably like 45 minutes left. Then that says a lot considering it's a 3-hour movie. But, if you've been invested in this from the jump, since Iron Man 1 back in 2008, if you've seen all or at least most of the movies, 90% of the movies, this movie is like the slow burn it has is so worth it. It's just so worth it. Like I said, they explore everything with the characters. Like I said, they face their pasts, their regrets and all that stuff. And man, this isn't a spoiler or anything. You guys already know this. There are some character deaths. Of course, I'm not going to spoil that for you guys, but like there are some deaths. I'm not going to tell you who, of course, but yeah, just have your tissues ready. I almost cried, almost. And and that's not to say that it wasn't emotionally impactful. It really was. I'm just not that emotional type of guy when it comes to being sad, like I'm emotional whenever someone says some stupid shit and I'm just like, I start talking, I'm like, what the fuck, like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, that's when I get emotional. When it comes to sad stuff, like, I'm pretty brick wall about that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? But most people I see on my newsfeed and stuff, man, they've been talking about they were crying. The fact that it almost made me cry knows that should tell you, like, damn, man, like, shit really goes down in this movie, because it really does. It really does. This movie is it's just so emotional. Which kind of brings me back to the other thing I had mentioned where I was like, there's jokes and stuff in between there. Now, of course, it's a Marvel movie, so it's going to have some comedy and humor in it. As usual, I did think there was just a little bit too much, and I wish Marvel would kind of tone it back a little bit, honestly. Like, this is Endgame, right? This is the finale. It's fine having, funny moments, especially when the funny moments make sense within the particular scene or with a particular character. But there's like a couple things in this movie that seemed like almost cartoonish, and it's like, and that's not to say that there's like weird tonal shifts. It doesn't do anything like that. Like Thor Ragnarok had a lot of that, where like things were like clashing and things of that nature, or like The Last Jedi, where it's like a super serious and solemn scene, and then slapstick, when Rey hands Luke the lightsaber, and then it's like, oh my god, Rey found Luke, and Luke's looking at his saber, and then, sitcom laugh track tosses the saber. There's nothing like that, but the comedy and the jokes clash with the movie in terms of the overall tone and what the movie is, right? Endgame. It's the finality. It's the finale. Shit is serious. and we still have Thor saying like, "Hey, Hulk, pull my finger," like from Ragnarok, right? And that doesn't happen. Nothing to that level happens. But just as an example of what I mean, they needed to tone down the comedy just a little bit because it's like it was serious. And once the third act starts getting rolling around, yeah, like things are very very serious and it gets to that nitty gritty. But I just feel like there's just one joke too many for sure, and they probably should have kept the tone just a tad bit more serious for the overall movie as a whole. But it wasn't enough shoehorned comedy to really ruin the experience or anything like that. Um, but another thing that was really great about this movie is just it's such a love letter to comic book fans. You know what I mean? Like there's so much in this movie to where a lot of just average moviegoers like they wouldn't be able to appreciate. The thing during the last battle that happens that I said you have to, let me not say that. Let me not say that because I don't want that might spoil people who put two and two together and might be smart. But there's the thing that happens during the fight near the end. There was like the very end of the movie, where the like the very very end. You know what I mean? So like there's a lot of things that will just go over like the general consumer's head. You know what I mean? So like if you are a comic book fan and you like Marvel and you at least remotely pay attention, there should at least be a couple things in this movie you're just gonna be like, wow, like they actually did it. You know what I mean? Like they actually did it. But yeah, like I said, like this movie was a lot about the legacy. It just really makes it feel like everything that's happened up until this point matters. Like almost every single movie mattered. It was relevant to this movie in some type of way. You know what I mean? Like it just all comes together, and like I said, the movie is really slow. So for someone who's just trying to jump in and watch Endgame and they haven't really been following the Marvel universe like that, they might say the movie was just like, oh, I mean, it's okay, I guess, or it's pretty good. But it's definitely that thing where the more you're dedicated to it, the more of a fan you are of it, the more passion you have for it, the better the movie is. You know what I mean? Because like I said, it's a love letter to all of us enthusiasts who've been paying close attention. We know at least a little bit about the comics. You know what I mean? Just God, and I'm not even talking about the movie itself right now. I'm just talking about like as a whole. Once you watch this movie and you finish it, you're just gonna be like, damn, Marvel, like well done. You know what I mean? Like such great world building. That's the word for it. It's just world building. Just the best world building. I can't imagine anyone anytime soon reaching the level of just world crafting that Marvel has done for these movies. It's just it's freaking incredible. It's freaking incredible. One thing I need to talk about, I'll go ahead and talk about it now so I don't leave it out of the review. A lot of people don't like Captain Marvel because they don't like Brie Larson or whatever, and SJW feminists and all that crap. Well, yada yada whatever. They don't like her for that, and a lot of people were concerned that since Captain Marvel was kind of like shoehorned literally right before Endgame at the end, that she was going to come and be the hero and do the finishing blow on Thanos or something like that. No spoiler, but I can assure you guys this movie is not Captain Marvel focused at all. Matter of fact, for a large portion of the movie, she is not even there. So for those of you guys who hate Brie Larson because she's a feminist or whatever, or she's plain or she's dry, like, don't worry. She doesn't steal the show. Like I said, when I said that this movie was about the legacy, like, I mean that. This movie was very much about the legacy Avengers. I'm talking about the original six. It's about, Steve. It's about freaking Tony, it's about Black Widow. It's about Hawkeye, Hulk, Thor. Most of those six take up most of the screen time, and Nebula actually has a good amount of screen time too. And honestly, she was one of my favorite characters in this movie. Like Nebula, people probably didn't really think much about Nebula after this movie. I think there'll be a lot of Nebula fans. You know what I mean? Like, oh my god, Nebula's so badass. She's so cool, and I love her attitude and shit like that. Nebula gets a good amount of screen time considering the significance of her character. War Machine was not that he's been unenjoyable, but he was very enjoyable in this movie as well. And War Machine and Nebula actually had some synergy together, which I thought was really interesting that those two characters would get along, but they get along really well. Um, and Valkyrie's in the movie as well, so yes, they do address what happened at the end of Thor Ragnarok and at the beginning of Infinity War. Valkyrie is in the movie, and she actually gets a decent amount of screen time too, considering relative to the significance of her character. You know what I mean? So for those who like Valkyrie and Ragnarok, she's in this movie, and you're definitely going to enjoy her on-screen time during this movie. But yeah, was there anything else I wanted to talk about? There was definitely some plot holes, and of course I can't talk about those plot holes. That's the thing. It's so hard to get like nitty gritty with this movie because it's just hard to like get into detail or get into specifics without not getting anywhere close to a spoiler. It's just really hard. It's hard to like get nowhere remotely close to one. So I'm not going to go into what I was just going to say, but there are a couple of plot holes and inconsistencies and stuff like that. So if you're like me, where you're a super critical person, there are a few points in the movie where you're going to be like, but couldn't this just happen? Or couldn't they just do this? You know what I mean? Like, they don't really have to do this. This could have circumvented that. But couldn't the villain just do this? There's a couple of moments like that. I'm not going to discuss what those are. But if you're not that type of person who gets down to the nitty gritty and you're like picking movies apart, and not to say that it's even nitpicky stuff, I would say it's fairly catchable things for even someone who's moderately, critical or, has that awareness, right? They're like analyzing the movie as they watch it. But yeah, might knock the movie down a few points for those of you guys. But if you guys just want, a satisfying ending to just a great saga, it is. It is. And like I said, your enjoyability for this movie scales with how much passion and enthusiasm you have put behind all these movies this whole time. But definitely, above all else, a lot of people will probably knock the movie harder for the plot points that it has, and maybe for like a lot of the comedy it could have went without. But I can definitely say, all those things aside, and as a fairly critical person myself, it was satisfying because the ending was satisfying. It was a good wrap up. You know what I mean? So so here's the best way I could basically put it. On its own, the movie is definitely flawed. And like I said, I actually enjoyed Infinity War more. So I don't even think it's the best Marvel movie. I don't think it's the best Avengers movie. And actually, I still like Winter Soldier the most out of any of the Marvel movies. I like Winter Soldier and Infinity War. So like, I don't even like it as much as those two. So I'm not trying to say like, oh my gosh, that's the most incredible thing. On its own, the movie definitely has weakness. But as its role, as the the ribbon on the present, right, or the tie, right, it's amazing and it's incredible. You know what I mean? So if you haven't seen them all, you're just a casual fan, like, oh, everyone's talking about, I'm going to go see it, you might not be too wild or amazed by it. I'm just going to be honest. But for those of you, like I said, where you're dedicated, you're passionate about it, you're in it for the long haul, it's definitely rewarding. It's definitely rewarding, and it's a satisfying ending. That's not to say that there won't be more Marvel movies. Of course there are. They already announced, tons of sequels before Infinity War even got its first trailer and shit. I said Infinity War, Endgame, right? We know there's a, Spider-Man, new Spider-Man. They showed a trailer for that already, announced, and a couple other sequels to movies from characters that got snapped away in Infinity War. But just as far as those phases go, satisfying. It was worth it. It's definitely worth it. So that's pretty much my, I keep wanting to say Infinity War. That's my Endgame review, guys. Let me know what you guys think down below. I'll probably have a video up maybe within the next few days where I just do a spoiler discussion for those of us who have seen the movie. Because there's definitely a lot of specifics I want to talk about, but I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to give people time to kind of like see the movie, and I'm going to try my best not to really open up in-game discussion on my social media, because I know some people have busy lives. They don't have the luxury of seeing movies on the weekends like that and stuff like that. So I'm going to try to give people like a month before I publicly just talk about it like that. But yeah, that's for this video, guys. Let me know what you guys think down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see y'all later. Peace.